My neck burned as every head in the glittering reception hall swiveled toward me. "And this is my sister Victoria," Amanda announced, her voice carrying across the crowd of strangers in designer attire. "She's our family's career woman. Still focusing on her job instead of finding someone special." The crystal champagne flute trembled in my grip as Richard's relatives exchanged knowing glances. Mrs. Henderson, the silver-haired matriarch of Richard's family, reached out with bejeweled fingers and patted my arm. "Don't worry, dear. Have you tried church groups? My nephew found his wife at a prayer meeting." Amanda laughed, not the light, celebratory laugh of a bride on her wedding day, but the sharp, vindictive sound of someone enjoying another's humiliation. My sister's white gown seemed to gleam brighter as she positioned herself between two wealthy guests, deliberately excluding me from their circle. "My name is Victoria, I'm 32 and a marketing executive. This is the story of how my sister's attempt to humiliate me at her wedding led to the most unexpected revenge. I'd known tonight would be difficult the moment I received the elegant cream envelope containing my seating assignment. Table 12, tucked behind a marble column near the kitchen doors where servers bustled in and out with trays. The singles table. The reject table. The place where Amanda had strategically placed me to ensure everyone knew her older sister was still alone. "The back corner suits you," Amanda had whispered earlier, adjusting her veil before the ceremony. "I didn't want you feeling awkward with all the couples. Plus, you won't be in many photos back there." Her concern was as transparent as the crystal chandeliers above us. As I retreated from the latest introduction, where Amanda had emphasized my independent lifestyle, with air quotes, I caught sight of my reflection in the ballroom's gilt-framed mirror. The navy dress I'd spent 3 paychecks on suddenly felt inadequate against the backdrop of Amanda's perfect wedding. I'd chosen it carefully, wanting to look successful and composed, not desperate or pathetic. Now it felt like armor that was failing to protect me. Amanda and I had never been close, but the competition between us had reached toxic levels since her engagement to Richard, a venture capitalist whose family owned half the commercial real estate in Boston. With each pre-wedding event, she'd found new ways to highlight my single status, always under the guise of sisterly concern. "Victoria, maybe try a dating coach," she'd suggested during the engagement party, loud enough for our mother to overhear. Diane Wright at work found someone after just 3 sessions. I could forward her information. Our mother Patricia had nodded in agreement while our father Thomas changed the subject, his discomfort evident but his intervention too weak to matter. The breaking point came during the bouquet toss. "All the single ladies to the dance floor," the DJ announced with enthusiasm that felt like mockery directed solely at me. I tried to disappear behind a champagne tower, but Amanda's maid of honor Olivia spotted me and grabbed my arm. "Come on, Victoria. This could be your lucky day." Her voice carried just enough for nearby guests to turn and stare. I found myself pushed into a circle of women a decade younger than me, Richard's cousins and Amanda's college friends, who giggled and squealed as my sister prepared to throw her bouquet. Standing among them in my carefully chosen dress and expertly applied makeup, I suddenly felt ancient and desperate. Amanda looked directly at me, her eyes narrowing slightly, and deliberately threw the bouquet in the opposite direction. A 23-year-old named Rebecca caught it while the crowd cheered. "Looks like Victoria will have to wait a little longer," Amanda announced, loud enough for the entire reception to hear. The laughter that followed felt like needles against my skin. I retreated to my assigned table, fighting back tears of rage and embarrassment. The wedding I'd dreaded for months had proven even worse than I'd imagined. Amanda had weaponized her perfect day against me, turning it into a public execution of my self-esteem. I was gathering my purse, planning my escape before anyone could see the tears threatening to spill, when a deep voice spoke behind me. "Act like you're with me." I turned, startled, to see a man in an impeccably tailored charcoal suit. Tall, with dark copper hair and confident posture, he carried himself with the kind of assurance that naturally drew attention. His eyes, green with amber flecks, held mine with unexpected warmth. "Excuse me," I whispered, my voice barely audible over the band. "Your sister just spent 10 minutes telling my colleague about how worried she is about you being alone," he said, sliding into the chair beside me with fluid grace. "I'm guessing you didn't ask her to broadcast your personal life to strangers." He was right. Across the room, I could see Amanda gesturing in my direction while talking to a cluster of Richard's business associates, her expression a perfect blend of pity and superiority. "You don't mind, do you?" he asked, though his tone suggested he was already committed to whatever plan he had in mind. I shook my head, finding my voice. "Not if it wipes that smug look off her face." "I'm Nicholas," he said, extending his hand with a warm smile. "Richard's cousin from Chicago. And you're Victoria, The sister who apparently needs saving from eternal spinsterhood. Despite everything, I laughed, a genuine sound that felt foreign after hours of forced politeness. That's me. The family charity case. Well, not anymore, he said with a smile that was both reassuring and slightly mischievous. Nicholas draped his arm casually along the back of my chair and leaned close to speak to me as if we'd known each other for years. Almost immediately, I noticed heads turning in our direction. Amanda, mid-conversation with her wedding planner, did a double-take when she spotted us. Her perfect bride smile faltered for just a moment before she excused herself and started walking toward our table, her train trailing behind her like a warning flag. Victoria, she called out, her voice an octave higher than normal. I didn't know you knew Nicholas. Old friends, Nicholas said smoothly, his hand covering mine on the table. We lost touch for a while, but you know how these things go. Amanda's eyes narrowed, her wedding day composure cracking just enough to reveal her confusion. Really? Victoria never mentioned you. I try to keep my private life private, I said, finding my confidence in Nicholas' steady presence. Unlike some people. The irony wasn't lost on me. Amanda had spent the entire evening broadcasting my lack of a love life, and now she was fishing for details about a relationship that didn't exist. How wonderful, Amanda said through a tight smile. How long have you two been reconnecting? Long enough, Nicholas said, his thumb tracing small circles on the back of my hand. The casual intimacy of the gesture wasn't lost on Amanda, whose eyes tracked the movement with visible disbelief. As my sister walked away, clearly frustrated by the lack of information, Nicholas turned to me with a conspiratorial whisper. She looks like she just bit into a lemon. She's not used to not knowing everything about my life, I said, unable to suppress my smile. Or having me upstage her in any way. Good, he said, green eyes sparkling. Let's keep her guessing. For the next hour, Nicholas played the part perfectly. He brought me drinks from the bar, laughed at my jokes, and kept physical contact just enough to make our connection believable. But more importantly, he actually listened when I talked. He asked about my work in marketing, my passion for landscape photography, and my recent solo trip to Portugal. You're not what I expected, he said during a quiet moment between songs. What did you expect? Based on your sister's description, someone desperate and pathetic, he said bluntly. Instead, I'm sitting with someone intelligent, successful, and frankly, I can't figure out why you're single. Because I have standards, I said without thinking. He laughed, a genuine sound that made something inside my chest loosen for the first time that evening. Good for you. By this point, Amanda was openly staring at our table. I could see her whispering to Olivia, who kept glancing our way with obvious curiosity. Richard's family members who had pitted me earlier were now looking at Nicholas with recognition and approval, clearly reassessing me through the lens of his obvious status. When the band started playing slow songs, Nicholas stood and extended his hand with a confident smile. Dance with me. On the dance floor, with his hand resting lightly on my waist and mine on his shoulder, I felt the eyes of every guest who had offered me unsolicited dating advice. For the first time that night, their attention didn't make me want to disappear. Your sister is watching, Nicholas murmured as we swayed to the music. I know, I said, noting Amanda's fixed smile as she observed us from across the room. She looks like she's going to explode. Mission accomplished, then. I looked up at him, this stranger who had given me back my dignity with a simple act of kindness. Almost. That's when Amanda made her move. Mind if I cut in, she said, appearing beside us with Richard in tow. Her wedding smile was stretched tight across her face, and I could see the calculation behind her eyes. Actually, yes, Nicholas said politely but firmly. We are having a moment. Amanda's face cycled through several expressions before settling on forced brightness. Of course. I just wanted to say how happy I am that Victoria finally found someone. We were all so worried about her. Were you? Nicholas asked, his tone neutral but his eyes sharp. Because from what I've observed tonight, it seems like you've been more interested in broadcasting her single status than supporting her. The directness of his statement left Amanda speechless for a moment. Richard shifted uncomfortably beside her, clearly sensing the tension but not understanding its source. We just want what's best for Victoria, Amanda stammered, her composure cracking. Then maybe treat her with the respect she deserves instead of using her love life as entertainment for your wedding guests, Nicholas said calmly. I had never seen Amanda look so rattled. Her perfect wedding confidence was completely shattered, and for the first time all evening, she was the one who looked small. I don't know what Victoria told you, but... She didn't have to tell me anything, Nicholas interrupted. I have eyes. Richard finally stepped in, clearly uncomfortable with the public nature of the confrontation. Maybe we should let them get back to dancing. As they walked away, Amanda's carefully constructed facade was visibly crumbling. I could see her frantically whispering to Olivia, probably trying to figure out who Nicholas really was and how I'd managed to capture the attention of someone so obviously out of my league, at least according to her assessment. That felt really good, I admitted as we continued dancing. We are not done yet, Nicholas said with a smile that made my heart skip. For the rest of the evening, Nicholas made sure I was never alone. When dinner was served, he requested that we be moved to a better table, something about his dietary restrictions requiring him to be closer to the kitchen. The staff, clearly recognizing Richard's family connections, accommodated us immediately. Our new table was front and center, where everyone could see us laughing and talking like a real couple. Amanda's friends who had ignored me earlier suddenly wanted to chat and meet Nicholas. Richard's relatives who had pitied me now treated me with newfound respect and curiosity about my mysterious boyfriend. Mrs. Henderson, who had suggested church groups earlier, now wanted to know all about Nicholas' background. When she learned he was a successful tech entrepreneur with degrees from Stanford, her attitude toward me changed completely. "Victoria, you dark horse," she said with genuine admiration. "You never mentioned you were seeing someone so accomplished." The final act of revenge came during the garter toss. When Richard prepared to throw the garter to the single men, Nicholas stepped forward with the ease of someone who belonged exactly where he was. "Wait," Amanda called out desperately. "Nicholas, you're not single." Nicholas looked at me, then back at Amanda with a mysterious smile. "Actually, I am. Victoria and I are taking things slow, getting reacquainted." The garter landed directly in his hands, whether by luck or Richard's deliberate aim, I couldn't tell. But the symbolism wasn't lost on anyone, especially Amanda. According to tradition, Nicholas was supposed to place the garter on the leg of whoever caught the bouquet. But young Rebecca had left early with her friends. "Looks like we need a volunteer," the DJ announced. Nicholas looked at me with a question in his eyes. I nodded. The crowd cheered as I sat in the chair and Nicholas knelt before me, sliding the garter onto my leg with a gentleness that felt surprisingly intimate for an act of pretense. The moment was charged with possibility, and I found myself wondering if the chemistry between us was entirely fake. Amanda's face was a mask of barely controlled fury as she watched her single, pathetic sister become the center of positive attention at her own wedding. As the evening wound down and guests began to leave, Nicholas walked me to my car. The parking lot was quiet, away from the watchful eyes of wedding guests and my judgmental family. "Thank you," I said, finally alone with him. "I know tonight was just an act, but you saved me from the most humiliating experience of my life." "What makes you think it was just an act?" he asked, his expression serious. My heart stuttered. Because you don't even know me." "I know enough," he said, stepping closer. "I know you're kind, even when people don't deserve it. I know you're strong enough to endure a night of humiliation without fighting back. And I know your sister is an idiot for not seeing how lucky she is to have you as family." I felt tears threatening, but this time they weren't from humiliation. "Nicholas, I know this started as a rescue mission," he said, "but somewhere between the first dance and now, it stopped being pretend for me." He handed me a business card with his personal number written on the back in elegant handwriting. "If you want to see me again, not for revenge, not to prove a point, just because you want to, call me." I took the card with slightly trembling fingers. "What if I want to call you tonight?" He smiled, that same confident smile that had first caught my attention. "Then I'll answer." 3 months later, Nicholas and I were officially dating. The parking lot was quiet, away from the watchful eyes of wedding guests and my judgmental family. "Thank you," I said, finally alone with him. "I know tonight was just an act, but you saved me from the most humiliating experience of my life." "What makes you think it was just an act?" he asked, his expression serious. My heart stuttered. Because you don't even know me." "I know enough," he said, stepping closer. "I know you're kind, even when people don't deserve it. I know you're strong enough to endure a night of humiliation without fighting back." 6 months after that, we moved in together. And exactly 1 year after Amanda's wedding, he proposed to me at the same venue where we'd first met. Amanda's reaction to our engagement announcement was everything I could have hoped for. The sister who had spent years making me feel inadequate for being single was now forced to watch me plan a wedding with a man who clearly adored me and who came from an even more prestigious family than Richard's. But the real revenge wasn't in proving Amanda wrong about my worthiness of love. It was in realizing that I didn't need her validation anymore. Nicholas' respect and genuine affection had shown me what I deserved, and I would never settle for less again. Our wedding was smaller than Amanda's but infinitely more joyful. Instead of using the occasion to humiliate anyone, we celebrated with people who genuinely supported us. Amanda gave a speech as my maid of honor, something she'd insisted on despite our complicated history, where she talked about how happy she was to see me find love and how Nicholas was clearly perfect for me. The revisionist history was breathtaking, but I didn't care anymore. I had something more valuable than her approval or my revenge. I had someone who saw my worth from the very beginning. Looking back, Amanda's wedding was simultaneously the worst and best night of my life. Her cruelty showed me how I'd been allowing people to treat me, but it also led me to Nicholas. Without her humiliation, I never would have been vulnerable enough to accept help from a stranger. Sometimes the people who hurt us the most end up giving us exactly what we need to change our lives. Amanda wanted to make me feel small and pathetic. Instead, she created the perfect circumstances for me to meet my future husband. The irony is perfect. In trying to prove I was unlovable, she delivered me directly to the love of my life.